Why I think it's easier cutting as a vegan than eating meat. So there's a new study that came out that compared plant protein to animal protein. The results of this study, I'm going to let Dr. Ids explain.
When you look at the data on plant protein versus animal protein, there's no question from the science that animal protein is better at building muscle. Now, you can do it with plant protein, but you need a lot more, or you need to jack it up and spike it with various amino acids like leucine and branched chain amino acids to actually stimulate muscle protein synthesis.
Now, I'm not even vegan, but I think Hyman needs to update his knowledge on this. Times school. This human control trial took 38 vegans and omnivores. They underwent a 12-week supervised training program at a matched protein intake of 1.6 grams per kilogram. And they saw no differences in lean mass, cross-sectional area, or strength between groups. This study in 2023 compared a vegan to omnivorous diet as well. They consumed over 1.8 grams per kilogram of protein per day and found that protein synthesis rates, increases in thigh muscle volume, cross-sectional areas, and strength gains were all similar between groups. So it seems as long as you're consuming the recommended amounts of protein to build muscle in the first place, which is around 1.6 grams per kilogram, then you don't need a lot more plant protein as Mark says, and there doesn't really seem to be any differences in muscle-related outcomes. Then he says you'd have to jack it up with BCAAs or leucine to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. He's alluding to the leucine trigger hypothesis, but that's not entirely accurate either. Evidence from several different studies shows that just as little as 10 grams of protein is sufficient to stimulate MPS both in rested individuals and post-exercise. So instead of worrying about the mechanisms of building muscle, just focus on getting enough total protein in the day and you'll be absolutely fine. Class dismissed.
What this pretty much tells us is what we knew before. If you're vegan, you probably knew this. Plant protein, animal protein, as long as you're eating from a wide variety of sources, there's no difference on their outcomes. People will say, oh, like meat has a higher bioavailability and all of those things, but when you look at the outcomes, there's not much difference because as long as you're, like I said, eating from more than one source of protein, you're going to be fine. So as someone who's been vegan for 6 years now, I have cut as a meat eater. I used to eat everything before I went vegan. And I also cut as a vegan. And I want to talk about my experience cutting as a vegan on a plant-based diet and why I think it's easier and you should cut on a plant-based diet. When I first started lifting, the thing was you have to eat, 2 to 3 times your body weight in protein. I was eating 200 to 250 grams of protein because that's what I was told you needed to eat to build muscle, to maintain muscle, and just to make sure you don't lose any muscle. Since then, thankfully so, there's been new studies that have come out and the latest science says that all you need is 1.6 times your body weight in kilos, which is like 0.8 times in pounds, I think. So for me, that is 145 grams of protein. That's all I need to maintain my muscle. If I want to build muscle, that's all I need, 145 grams of protein. So the first thing is you don't need that much protein to start off with. So I want to start off there. You don't need as much protein as you think. So let's start off there. Going into a plant-based diet, why I think it's so crucial to cutting is, first of all, it is so dense in nutrients. It is so calorically dense. So if you look at, let's say, a can of chickpeas, maybe like a can of chickpeas is like 100, 200 calories, a whole can of chickpeas. But when you eat those chickpeas, it is so much, it fills you up so quick. And what I've noticed is the more that I switch to a whole foods plant-based, which is like, beans and chickpeas and legumes, lentils, all of those kinds of whole foods, the more filling it is for me. What I've experienced is eating meat, it was easy to hit protein because a lot of food had, lots of protein, like chicken breast, for example. But what it was lacking is I just felt like absolute crap because that's all it had was just protein. When you look at protein to protein, I prefer whole foods plant-based much more now that I'm vegan because not only am I getting the protein, I'm also getting a lot of micronutrients and I'm also getting a lot of, fullness, fiber, which keeps me full. And sometimes it doesn't even feel like I'm cutting. I mean, most of the time it doesn't even feel like I'm cutting. So compared to eating meat where I was hitting my protein, I was hitting, everything, but I was left unsatiated. I wanted more. I still needed, it felt like I was dieting and I hated that. But now when I, mix in beans, when I make like red lentil soup or all kinds of whole foods plant-based recipes, I love it because I could eat so much and it's so low in calories. Like, it's dense in volume, but it's super low in calories. I will stand by foods like lentils, foods like chickpeas, dal as you would call it in India. I will 100% stand by foods like dal being so crucial to me in my cut. And of course, you're going to have people saying, oh, it's a carb source. It's so high in carbs. It's barely a protein source. And to those people, I say, so what? Just because it has carbs, that doesn't mean it's not a protein source. And in fact, because of Alex Leonidas, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, he's inspired me a lot over the past few years on following a high carb, high protein diet where I just have more energy. I have, I just feel more energetic. I feel stronger. I feel like I'm getting bigger. I'm building muscle from a high carb, high protein diet compared to, like a low carb, high protein, high fat diet or even a medium fat diet. But one thing is, who cares if it has carbs? I want carbs. Sure, red lentils has a lot of carbs, but it also has a lot of protein. So if I keep my fat low at like 50 grams of fat, even 40 to 50 grams of fat, and I keep my carbs high and I keep my protein high, so what? I'm still getting my protein. I'm still getting all the micronutrients that I need. I'm feeling full, like more full as ever. And I just feel good. I feel genuinely good. So this notion that you can't have carbs in a cut or you can't have carbs and lose weight is just bullshit. Carbs is my best friend, not fat. I mean, there are days where I crave fat. There are days where I do have a higher fat day because I do love peanut butter. I love nuts. I love all of those foods, So some days I feel like maybe I'll keep my fats a little bit higher, keep my carbs low. But most of the time, my carbs are high. My protein is high. Who cares? It's not the end of the world if your protein source has some carbs with it as well. It's not the end of the world if your protein source has more carbs than protein. That doesn't make it not a protein source. Like chickpeas and lentils and all of these whole foods plant-based sources, they are a protein source. And I'm living proof. I eat so much lentils. I eat so much chickpeas, so many beans. And these are foods that are high in carbohydrates, but I'm still losing weight. I feel stronger than ever. I look better than ever. So this needs to go. Carbs are bad. So that aside, following a plant-based diet, I feel like honestly is like a cheat code. It's a hack because you can eat so much food and it doesn't even feel like you're eating so much food. And this brings me to my last point, which pretty much ties everything together and is the most important thing if you're trying to lose weight, is how you feel. I feel better than ever on a plant-based diet. I look better than ever. Like I have no acne, I have more energy, I just feel better, my gut feels better. So how you feel is obviously crucial. You can't cut while feeling like shit. I mean, you can, but it's not worth it. You want it to feel good. You want to enjoy your diet because a diet that you can't enjoy is not a diet that you can sustain. If you're feeling good, you're feeling full, and you're hitting your protein goals, that's all that matters. Just focus on getting your protein, and who cares if you have carbs? Who cares if your fat's low? You're going to feel so much better. Trust me, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to have so much more energy, and you're just going to feel stronger in the gym. I'm never going to go back to, days where I'm consistently eating a low carb diet. Carbs are not your enemy. There's this Indian notion that carbs is so bad for you, but it's bullshit. I love rice. I'm never going to stop eating rice. I'm going to eat rice forever, and it shouldn't be demonized. I can easily fit rice into my diet. I'm eating 2,300 calories right now, and I can easily fit in a huge meal of red lentil dal and white rice. And I'll feel so full afterwards, and before I know it, I would have gotten 50 grams of protein just from that rice and dal. And you know what? It's a complete protein. If I mix the rice with dal, it's a complete protein. So you're just going to feel so much better, especially if you're Indian and you're used to eating foods like dal and white rice. You want to follow a diet that you can sustain. So if you're eating foods that you genuinely enjoy, it's going to make you feel better. You're going to stick to your diet, and cutting is going to be so much easier. So I would say, even if you're not vegan, give it a go. Eat more plant-based options. Eat more plant-based foods. Add in more beans, add in some lentils, add in chickpeas. You're going to feel so much more full. You're going to feel so much better, especially if you feel like you're starving on your diet. Especially if you feel like you hate cutting because you just feel so hungry. try adding in more whole foods, plant-based foods.